Scottish Government found in contempt over Salmond files, and I've just spoke about this on the channel just the other day. Alex Salmond basically got me too'd by the SNP because he made a little threat about returning to politics because he was basically, for those who don't know, he was the leader of the SNP. There was the 2014 referendum. We lost the referendum, and Salmond, as politicians do, resigned. He then brought in his protege, who he had been grooming for years to be his replacement, Nicola Sturgeon. Alex Salmond was then just vibing in retirement. But then the SNP kind of veered completely the fuck away from Scottish independence and started talking about pronouns and trans stuff and all the other leftist nonsense that you get everywhere else. Alex Salmond was sort of like, hey, what happened to the whole independence thing? The point of the party. It seems that your attention is diverted, elsewhere. And then he threatened a little bit of a comeback. And Nicola Sturgeon didn't want to lose her nice big hat and her nice big chair. So basically, the allegation is that a bunch of women in the party were coached and encouraged to make a bunch of Me Too allegations against Alex Salmond. All of this ended up going to court. Alex Salmond was found not guilty. Alex Salmond then took the SNP and the government to court, and Alex Salmond won a very fat payout, right? Because the entire thing essentially was engineered, right? And now the Scottish Government itself has been investigated over the files, right? Because it seems that they didn't release them in time, or they were clearly hiding stuff. And who was in control of the Scottish Government at the time? The SNP. So, anyway, let's get into the article. The Scottish Government has been found in contempt by the Court of Session for deliberately delaying the publication of the so-called Salmond files. The court ruled that the government failed to start work on redacting the documents until after Christmas, despite being told to do so on 1st December last year. The documents, which have been at the centre of a long-running legal battle over a freedom of information disclosure, were eventually published in February. The court admonished the government and ordered it to pay legal expenses to the Information Commissioner. The files relate to the inquiry into whether former First Minister Nicola Sturgeon breached the ministerial code over her handling of complaints against her late predecessor, Alex Salmond. Sturgeon was cleared of breaching the code following an independent inquiry by lawyer James Hamilton in 2021. The Information Commissioner, David Hamilton, issued the Scottish Government with a warning letter on 16th January requiring the publication of the documents by 22nd of January. The government had been found to have incorrectly withheld the information on cost grounds. When that deadline was missed, Hamilton referred the matter to the Court of Session. In a written judgment, Ladypool said the Scottish Government deliberately failed to carry out the redaction by the Information Commissioner's set date. The judge said the government's claim that they would comply with the order as soon as possible showed a lack of respect to the Commissioner's role. She also noted the government had failed to tender an apology to the Commissioner or admit contempt. And the judge concluded that no steps had been taken to rectify matters and avoid future repetition. Ladypool's judgment acknowledged the government had offered a partial explanation for the delay, including the additional complexities because of court orders that were in place, and the significant amount of documentation that was involved. It also said the Information Commissioner might have given a slightly longer period for the government to comply because of the Christmas holidays. But it said those factors did not explain the long delays before work on redacting the documents began, and noted the significant resources available to the government. The ruling said the court not exercising its powers in the case would send out the wrong signal to other public bodies, undermine the authority of the Commissioner, and subvert the rule of law. The amount of expenses due to be paid by the government was not disclosed. Hamilton said the decision to refer the case to the Court of Session had not been taken lightly. He added, failing to comply with my decisions undermines the fundamental principles of FOI and damages the information rights of individuals. I trust that the Scottish ministers will now reflect carefully on this ruling and review their broader legal approach to certain aspects of FOI compliance, and particularly those relating to the James Hamilton inquiry. The Scottish Government has been contacted for comment. Why was the government taken to court? I love it when the government gets taken to court. However, I can bear in mind that everyone that works for the court is a government agent. So that's why they always rule in their own favour every single time, because, that can be fun. That's just something you get to do when you're in charge. Except in this case. Although I do believe that if we were a fully independent country, then they would have went, nah, get to fuck off. In fact, we're going to vote that shit out. The row centres on James Hamilton's probe into the ministerial code breach. After Sturgeon was cleared, an FOI request was made to the Scottish Government for disclosure of all written evidence involved in the investigation. The Government had rejected that request on the grounds Hamilton was an independent advisor on the ministerial code and therefore was not covered by FOI legislation. However, the Information Commissioner intervened and ordered the Government to reconsider. The government challenged the decision in the Court of Session, sparking a lengthy series of complex appeals. They really did not want to publish these files. Salmond, who died in 2024, successfully sued the government in 2019 over its mishandling of harassment complaints against him. He was cleared of sexually assaulting 9 women in 2020. In February, First Minister John Swinney said the request by the Commissioner had been complicated by the need to make redactions to avoid identifying women who had made allegations against Salmond. By the way, people were even getting sent to jail for talking about stuff related to this case that they weren't allowed to talk about. At the time of his death, Salmond had launched another lawsuit against the government alleging misfeasance, a civil term which covers the wrongful exercise of lawful authority. Paul McManus, drummer with Glasgow rock band Gun, took over funding the case in February this year after Salmond's estate was placed into sequestration, equivalent to bankruptcy over costs linked to the court action. That's meant we got that big massive payout and he was still bankrupt. I mean, I suppose it doesn't matter anymore if he's popped his clogs. Basically, this is an excellent example of just the dodgy shit that the SNP get up to. Right, basically the SNP is looking like they are one of the most corrupt parties. I mean, every single one of them are corrupt, right? Except the Libertarian Party. We literally have no money. We got no money, no votes, but we get to sit and have a beer together sometimes. Yeah, the resistance. Right, but basically, like, the SNP is looking fucking diabolical recently, right? Especially all this stuff that's happened. Basically, you had the entire Salmond farce. Right, basically the referendum failed and then Salmond left, which, okay, wasn't a good look, but that's just what politicians do. Nicola Sturgeon came in, completely fucked everything up, and then her husband who gets caught stealing shit tons of money, but don't worry, she totally didn't know a thing about it. You know, that motorhome and the Jaguar parked in the driveway. You know, she just wasn't paying attention for about 14 years. Right, then she bloody rage quits the party, and then they go, I know what will fix her. I know what will fix her terrible, terrible fucking impression with the public. Hamza Yusuf. The worst possible fucking person that they could have brought in, right? And then he came in and he was just gaff after gaff after gaff, and now they've brought in John Swinney, also known as fucking Skeletor. Right? And basically, it's just controversy after controversy with the SNP, and it's just constant evidence of them being just the dodgiest bastards on earth. Right? And this is just the stuff they've been caught for. This is just what they've been fucking caught for, right? And again, I know that all parties are corrupt, but the SNP are just bad at it. Because, like, everybody else gets away with it, but they keep getting fucking caught.